My coach stopped far below the castle. The moon had started to disappear behind one tower, and even in silhouette, the infamous fortress looked evil. The horses were jittery in their traces and whinnied their displeasure at the unscheduled stop. It wasn't until the nearby wolves howled that I remembered the tales the peasants had told me about Castle Dracula. It was on May the 3rd when I left Munich. My train went over one of the splendid Danube bridges that links the Western world to the East with all its Turco-Oriental mysteries. I stayed with the express until I was beyond Bistritz. I stopped at the Golden Krone Hotel, and there a letter from the Count awaited me. My friend Harker, welcome to the Carpathian Mountains. I anxiously await you. The coach will bring you to my castle. I trust your long journey from London has not tired you, and that you will enjoy staying in my beautiful Transylvania. Your friend, Dracula. The following day, before I boarded the coach, I found the innkeeper had learned of my destination, and he and his wife took me aside. He is on his way to the castle Dracula, Hannah. Then the man made the sign of the cross. If you must go, young hare, wear this crucifix of silver, for it is the eve of St. George's Day, and... 3 others were in the coach with me. The passengers, hearing my destination, began to recite words that I was totally unfamiliar with. As quickly as I could, I flipped through my language dictionary and found the translations. The names meant devil, hell, witch, werewolf, and vampire. What nonsense. And yet, these people seemed serious enough. On May the 5th, our carriage stopped in the shadow of the castle. On the side road sat Dracula's coach. The driver, his face covered with a dust mask, addressed me from the darkness. Herr Harker, I am to drive you up the mountain. My master awaits you there. The driver of the coach, seeing that I was being met on the deserted road, drove off with whip flailing as if the devil were after him. As I climbed into the Count's carriage, I thought about the passengers' stories which often mention the undead, creatures dying but coming back to life. The carriage wound up a narrow road, closed in on either side by rocks and pines. All at once, I could pick out low, slinking forms gradually moving in close to us. Driver, those wolves, have they ever been known to attack? Making no answer, he drove on, until suddenly our coach was ringed in by wolves who leapt hungrily about us. The driver slid down from his perch, saying, "Fear nothing, Herr Englishman. The beasts dare not come closer now." And with that, he built a pile of stones alongside the road, and remarkably, the wolves halted their attack. Certainly, it couldn't be because of the rocks. They have no magic charm. But then, a blue flame erupted from the stones, and from where I sat... Oh, no. It must be my tired eyes. Or the long journey. But the driver looks transparent. To my great relief and puzzled surprise, the wolf pack scattered, their tails between their legs, as if... See, Herr Harker, the beasts no longer molest us. This time I was silent. The driver's mysterious words and actions. Surely the Count will satisfy my curiosity with some rational explanation. Upon close inspection from the courtyard, it seemed that the castle had not been taken care of for centuries. The driver's curt words brought me back from my bafflement. Your luggage will be delivered inside, mein Herr. Knock at the front door. Then he whipped his coach out of sight, impudent lackey. But at least he responded to me. No one answered the front door. My pounding fist caused the unlatched door to swing open creakingly. Bats flitted out. I was too amazed to be frightened for the moment. What a strange and sinister dwelling. What manner of man is my host? I found my answer almost immediately. In the dim, somber glow of candlelight, I caught my breath as I first glimpsed the castle's master and heard his softly familiar voice. I am Count Dracula. Welcome to my home, Herr Harker. I trust you had a safe journey. The winter has been harsh, and the wolves can be unpleasant. Please come in. My castle is yours. Dinner is waiting for you. Follow me. And with that, he held his candle high enough for me to see the hallway as he led me to the dining room. If the elements had been harsh to the rock and the mortar on the outside of the castle, then the dampness and neglect had just as greatly mutilated the interior. Cobwebs, boasting families of spiders, draped every arch and gargoyle. In the dining room, I fell to hungrily. The food was good, but I noticed a strange thing. Count Dracula, you're not dining. I have already dined. After the meal, we went into the study, which was indeed another study in negligence. To business. I handed him the papers from Peter Hawkins, my London colleague. As he reached out and took them from me, I noticed his hands for the first time. How strange. Dracula has hairy palms. Scanning the papers quickly, he seemed quite pleased. 20-acre estate called Carfax. Secluded, high stone wall, outskirts of London. Excellent, Harker. Excellent. Just what I wanted. With that, he carefully put the papers away and turned the conversation to other things. Listen, Harker. The children of the night. Think of the wild, savage thrill of being a hunting creature. As he later led me upstairs, I couldn't help but think what a strange thing to say. He seemed anxious to get me settled for the night and hurried me along. But it is late. Your bedroom is this way. Sleep as late as you wish, Harker. Amuse yourself during the day tomorrow. I cannot see you until evening. Though I never was a man vain enough to keep a diary, I did feel that the extraordinary occurrences of my trip warranted at least a journal. So, for the first time in my life, I kept track of the day-by-day happenings. Harker's Journal, May the 8th. And so began my strange nocturnal life with Count Dracula. He shuns the daylight hours. We spend long nights together, completing the business arrangements for the purchasing of the Carfax estate. I suppose he's not a bad chap, really. Why does he seem to shun the daylight? Why does he never eat? Why are there no servants in this castle? And why are there no mirrors in the whole place? Fortunately, I had brought my own shaving glass. May the 10th. This evening, while I was shaving, Dracula came into my room. Good evening, my English friend. Not having heard the Count enter my room, but hearing his voice behind me and feeling his hand on my shoulder, I looked up, expecting to see his reflection. Why is there no image of Dracula in my mirror? Abruptly, in blazing anger, Dracula tore my mirror from its hook and dashed it into thousands of silver splinters. A mirror! They aren't allowed in my castle. The intensity of his anger startled me until I saw that he had regained control of his temper. That is, until he saw a cut I had made shaving. You cut yourself, Harker. Blood on your throat. The pupils of his eyes dilated. He gripped me by the shoulder, his nails dug into my flesh. As I twisted away, my shirt pulled loose and revealed the silver crucifix the old peasant lady had given me. The Count clawed his temple in pain and reared back from the cross. "The cursed cross!" he gasped. I pulled the crucifix free from my shirt and held it before me, and Dracula retreated, finally darting out of the door of my room. No mirror image, craving of human blood, fearful of the crucifix. In my mind, I could picture the little old woman who had given me the silver cross. "Beware, young hare, of the vampire." May the 11th. Before sunset, I explored the castle and found many of the doors locked, particularly all the doors leading to the front wing and out. I then began to survey the castle perimeter from the many leaded windows of the fortress. Climbing high in the castle, I opened the last window I could reach and, looking out, thought, here, at the back of the castle, 1,000-foot precipice. No escape this way. Now I know the truth. I am Dracula's prisoner. The next evening, hiding my fears, I queried Count Dracula about his ancestry out of morbid curiosity. He seemed delighted with my fraudulent interest and expounded at length on his heritage. "My people built an empire lasting many centuries. The Turks battered at our borders. How well I remember those fierce battles. The blood of many Dracula kinsmen spilling into the soil." Good Lord, he speaks as if he were there in person. It was then that I looked carefully at the portrait he continually referred to. The painted eyes first attracted my interest. Can this be his own portrait? What manner of man can still be alive today, 600 years later? But his departing words chilled me even more. Much Dracula blood was lost to the invaders, precious blood. A debt not yet collected in full by the only Dracula surviving today. Good night, Herr Harker, and pleasant dreams. Later, too restless for sleep, I gazed down into the courtyard near my bedchamber when suddenly I saw what had to be a crawling figure. It's Dracula leaving his quarters. He's going down that vertical wall like a huge lizard. I realized my opportunity. With him away, now is my chance to use this poker to pry open the door leading to his wing of the castle. Perhaps there is a way to the outside world in there. I went through many doors, but I came finally to an immovable barrier. Trapped. In my prison of nameless horrors, I wandered back through many ancient, undisturbed rooms. I've lost my way. I'm weary. Let me rest. Dozing, I awoke with a start to find 3 women standing over me. The room smelled sharply of mold, and a pale green mist whirlpooled into the corners of the room. The fairest of the 3 spoke. "Ah, he is young and strong. We will take turns." She came toward me, long blonde hair falling over her bare shoulders, which were more ashen-colored than white. Is she going to kiss me? She bent down and cradled my head in her hands. Her lips parted, and I noticed her teeth. Her canine teeth were long and pointed. Why is she moving down toward my neck? Ah! Oh! Her fangs raked across my throat, leaving a chain of tiny wounds. Then, quite suddenly, she was torn away. The horrible deed was interrupted by the return of Dracula. back, wench! How dare you touch him? He is mine, you know. Mine. At that time, I could only guess what terrifying thing he meant. The three hideous females faded ghost-like into the night. Then Dracula commanded me from his room. As for you, English fool, do not again invade my quarters, or you will meet your own madness. May the 19th. Bewildering, hopeless days passed. Then one evening, I saw Dracula's cunning plan. He sat me at a desk and he made me take pen in hand. Write to Peter Hawkins in London, 3 letters, dated a week apart. First, that you are leaving Castle Dracula. Second, you are on the train to Budapest. Third, you are booking passage on a French ship to England. I suppose I looked up startled, for then he said, but of course, my dear Harker, you will be my guest another month or more. May 28th. Today, I tried a desperate measure when a band of gypsies paused for the day in the courtyard with the Count's permission. From my window, I caught their attention. Deliver this note to the authorities, and the gold sovereign is yours. I threw down a note which one of them picked up. He examined the gold piece. Do not fail. It is life and death for me. But that evening, to my utter dismay, I watched the Count burn my letter to the authorities. Zgani turned over this note to me, Harker. It is a vile thing, an outrage upon friendship and hospitality. It is not signed. So it cannot matter to us. And he calmly held letter and envelope in the flame of the lamp until they were consumed. Then he went on. If you wish to leave, Harker, why not go? I couldn't say anything for a moment, and then I said, you're mocking me. To my complete surprise, he led me to the front portal of the castle and opened it for me. And this proves I mean it. Freedom is yours. I felt ashamed. Forgive me, Count Dracula. I must have imagined things about you. Goodbye. As I turned to go down the stairs, my eyes caught movement at the bottom. Wolves! Shut the door! Shut the door! I'll wait until the morning. Has something changed your mind? Then come back in, my dear guest. With that, the door swung closed and was locked once more. June the 17th. Time passes drearily. Dracula does not molest me, seeming busy with other important projects for which he calls in peasant wagons. The men have immediately got to work with shovels. Why are the Slovak wagon men hauling away pine boxes filled with fresh earth? Dracula oversees the whole proceedings. 50 boxes I want. Hurry. June the 20th. Tonight, I again saw the 3 ghost women materialize in the moonlit courtyard. There, Dracula tossed them something too revolting to relate. This time, the women were weak and emaciated from hunger. We starve, master. Dracula handed them a sack. Feast well. With a beating heart, I tried the door, but I was locked in my prison. I could do nothing. Over and over, the thought kept occurring to me. Did a child's whimpering come from that sack? Shortly, a pitiful, ragged figure was banging at the front door. Monster! monster! Give me back my child! My child! And I saw Dracula in his window, gesturing silently out over the fields, and then he spoke in a harsh, metallic whisper that I couldn't quite hear. And he was answered by the wolves. There was no cry from the woman, and the howling of the wolves was but short. Before long, they streamed away, licking their lips. I know what became of her child. She is better dead. June the 25th. Today, through a combination of bravado and desperation, a daring plan came to me. If Dracula can crawl across the castle walls, why not I? In the daylight. The stones are rough enough to cling to. Inch by inch, I must reach the Count's window. Falling into the chamber, I discovered it was a bare room. Empty, except for old sacks, holding, could it be? Yes, gold coins. Of Turkey, Romania, Hungary, and from ancient days, proving Dracula did exist 6 centuries ago. But my greatest find was a door leading out to the open air, yet not to freedom, for it was a grotto enclosed by walls. Can that be a chapel ahead? Quickly, I moved to it, and following tracks in the dust, I found a passageway leading to the burial chambers under the small church. Inside one of the vaults, I discovered 50 coffins. Again, I recalled the warnings I had received. The tales of the peasants. This will prove once and for all if I am in truth in the hands of... In the dim light, I could see one coffin was more elaborate than the other plain pine boxes. I removed the lid. There lay the Count, but looking as if his youth had been half renewed, for the white hair and moustache were changed to dark iron gray. The cheeks were fuller, and the white skin seemed ruby red underneath. The mouth was redder than ever, for on the lips were gouts of fresh blood, which trickled from the corners of the mouth and ran over the chin and the neck. Even the deep, burning eyes seemed set amongst swollen flesh, for the lids and the pouches underneath were bloated. It seemed as if the whole awful creature was simply gorged with blood. He lay like a filthy leech, exhausted with his repletion. I shuddered as I bent over to touch him, and every sense in me revolted at the contact, but I had to search, or I was lost. The coming night might see my own body a banquet in a similar way to those horrid 3. I felt all over the body, but no sign could I find of a key. Then I stopped, and I looked at the Count. There was a mocking smile on the bloated face, which seemed to drive me mad. This was the being I was hoping to transfer to London, where perhaps for centuries to come he might, amongst its teeming millions, satiate his lust for blood and create a new and ever-widening circle of semi-demons to batten upon the helpless. The thought drove me mad. A terrible desire came upon me to rid the world of such a monster. There was no lethal weapon at hand, but I seized a shovel which the workmen had been using to fill the cases, and lifting it high, struck with the edge downward at the hateful face. But as I did so, the head turned, and the eyes fell full upon me with all their blaze of basilisk horror. The sight seemed to paralyze me, and the shovel turned in my hand and glanced from the face, nearly making a deep gash above the forehead. The shovel fell from my hand across the box, and as I pulled it away, the flange of the blade caught the edge of the lid, which fell over again, and hid the horrid thing from my sight. The last glimpse I had was of the bloated face, blood-stained, and fixed with a grin of malice which would have held its own in the nethermost hell. Somehow, in a mad frenzy, I scaled the chapel yard's walls, and I lurched away from Castle Dracula. Free!
Free! Free! I am outwitted, Dracula!
I remember nothing more until I awoke in a Budapest sanatorium. The shock of my experience caused me to rave incessantly for the first few days, and the hospital staff considered me quite mad. Quiet now, said my nurse. Try to sleep. And sleep I did for many days. Soon I was much better. But as I found out later, another madman in a London sanatorium perplexed Dr. John Seward on his rounds. Renfield, why do you capture and eat flies? Common, ordinary, useless flies.
Oh, no, not useless, Doctor. Oh, no. Each is a life, you know. A small life, true, but if I consume many of them and their life force passes into me, I will live forever. Yes, for eternity.
Yet the madman Renfield, his mind often prophesying, spoke of a ship that the doctor knew nothing about.
The ship Demeter is taking 50 boxes of earth aboard. The crew is doomed. The doomed.
July the 6th. The Demeter finished loading its cargo at a Black Sea port. 48, 49, 50 boxes of earth. Why in the world should anybody ship cheap dirt from Transylvania to England? Strange. More than strange were the events to follow on the crossing of the Mediterranean. Mine missing, sir. Petrovsky. Just vanished last night. No one heard him go over. July the 17th. The captain's log recorded that the crew acted frightened. And one night in a gale, a man making his rounds heard the forward watch say, That tall, thin figure with the gleaming red eyes, who in heaven's name is it? July the 24th. The Demeter passed Gibraltar, and a second man was found missing. The captain ordered the ship searched from fore to aft. No stowaway, sir. No stowaway aboard. Yet somebody or something is doing away with my men. From then on, the ship's log recorded in brief phrases the nightly disappearances of the crew. One by one, the hands met silent extinction aboard the ship of horror, until the captain prowled the decks one morning to find I'm alone. The only one left aboard. Storm brewing, and no hands to take in sail. Must lash myself to the wheel. Got to get through the Dover Straits. August the 3rd. Miraculously, the schooner survived the lashing storm. As if by some magical power, the unmanned derelict sailed to the English shore and grounded herself, and was found by a Coast Guard cutter after dark. Ahoy! Ahoy there! Why don't you answer? The cutter moved incautiously toward the beached Demeter. In the searchlight's glare, a huge, hairy form leapt into the surf. Look, sir! That huge dog has run under the beach. More like a wolf, I'd say, sir. They found the captain still aboard, but dead. Odd, those 2 marks on his throat, like tiny punctures. Aye, and he's the only soul aboard, sir. Eight days later, on August the 11th, those same words were echoed by Dr. John Seward, examining a Miss Lucy Westenra of London. Odd, these 2 punctures. Did Lucy suffer some kind of accident, Miss Murray, while she was with you? Mina Murray was my fiancée. She had come to spend a week with her good friend Lucy, helping her to get ready for her coming marriage to Arthur Homewood. She was a trifle flustered at the doctor's remark and showed him Lucy's brooch, which had a long, sharp pin. How clumsy of me, Dr. Seward. I must have accidentally jabbed her. You see, continued Mina, when I found Lucy sleepwalking last night,
I must have jabbed her accidentally.
Don't you worry, my dear, the doctor reassured her. Just feed Lucy rich foods and her touch of anemia will go away. Lucy, her skin as pale and translucent as onion skin paper, looked up slowly and responded for the first time.
Anemia? Thin blood? Is that why I feel so feeble?
The next night, Lucy walked again in her sleep. Mina found her in the garden. Under the full moon, tiptoeing along the walk, my fiancée was startled to see a tall, shadowy form with a cape that reminded her of folded back wings, bending over Lucy as if kissing her. The figure melted away into the shadows as its senses warned of her approach. Mina ran forward and tried to help the further weakened and horrified Lucy to her feet. Mina's thoughts ran a jumbled course.
She's unconscious, and her breathing is forced. What could have happened?
I was still in the Budapest sanatorium, recovering after my escape from Castle Dracula. My disappearance concerned Mina and caused her to relate her anxieties to Lucy.
I wish my Jonathan were here to help us. Why hasn't he written to me? He should be back from his business trip by now. I'm worried about him, Lucy.
While Lucy slept on her bed, Mina restlessly dozed on a nearby couch. A flapping sound instantly brought her from her light sleep.
What's that noise? It's at the French windows. Some big bird is trying to batter its way in.
But forcing her eyes to look toward the annoying sound, she covered her mouth with her hand, for what she saw was
a giant black bat. But it can't break through the heavy glass.
And then, as it disappeared, her thoughts turned to her friend.
Thank heaven it didn't wake poor Lucy.
The next night, at Dr. Seward's sanatorium, Renfield, the fly-eater, leapt through a glass window.
Renfield escaped!
And Renfield, hearkening to a call transmitted many miles from London, wailed in the darkness.
I hear, Master! I'm coming, Master!
Following commandment only his ears could hear, Renfield intercepted his master near King's Cross, where the ill-fated Demeter's cargo was being duly delivered. Renfield knelt at the crossroads as 3 wagons passed, loaded with the 50 coffins of dirt. They turned at a signpost reading Carfax.
Yes, Master, I understand. I will not follow, but I will go back quietly until my time.
The wagons arrived at Carfax, which Dracula had purchased through me. The old mansion would suit the Count ideally. The drayman carried the heavy coffins into the chapel, complaining, as all of us are apt to do. Oh, we've got to put them all in the old church. Hoist away. Oh, plenty heavy. Oh, well, none of our business why the new owner imported dirt. 2 days later, my fiancée received news about me. The note read as follows. Dear Miss Wilhelmina Murray, Mr. Jonathan Harker has been our patient for 6 weeks. He has been the victim of a violent brain fever and is at present unable to write to you himself. But he is improving rapidly and expresses the wish to see you soon. Sincerely yours, Sister Agatha, Blessed Sacrament Hospital, Budapest, Hungary. Forgetting Lucy for the time, Mina worried about me.
Oh, my poor dear. I'll take the next train in the fastest ship.
On the Orient Express, Mina looked over the hospital report the sister had included in the letter. Her anxiety for me was augmented by the fact that the hospital report said that I raved about demons, wolves, vampires, and blood.
My poor darling.
And with traditional English fortitude declared to herself,
I'll nurse him back to health as his wife.
She rushed into my hospital room in Budapest on August the 24th. At that time, I was suffering from the common convalescent malady of self-pity.
Oh, but Mina, my mind. I may never be fully cured. Your husband would be but a wreck of a man.
But Mina was determined.
Nonsense, my dear. Here comes the English minister. I arranged for our wedding here and now.
Dear Mina proved worthy of her own esteem and even put up with my occasional prophecies of doom. My dear wife... Oh, my dear, dear one, will misery be yours instead of happiness?
My dearest, I want you to take this journal of mine and seal it so that you will never know what I have seen. It's all so vague, even in my own mind. On the next to the last day in August, another marriage was arranged, encouraging examination, rhapsodized. Arthur and I set the date for September the 28th. Oh, I will be well enough, won't I, Dr. Seward? And Seward, unable to shatter her optimism, answered, I trust so, my child. I trust so. But Dr. Seward was worried enough over Lucy's condition to write to a blood specialist in Holland. Sitting in his study, he composed a letter. I'll ask Van Helsing to take the next boat across. Perhaps he can diagnose Miss Weston-Ra's persistent anemia. The enticing letter relayed the facts to the prominent physician. And Seward was at the pier when his colleague, Professor Abraham Van Helsing, arrived. Van Helsing, his eyes betraying his excitement of the new challenge, bid them hurry. Most interesting, Mynheer Seward. Let us at once your patient go see. Oh, excuse me. You see, my English still not too fluent is. After the examination, Van Helsing pulled Seward aside. The Dutchman was annoyingly vague. Lucy has lost much blood, yes, but it is not anemia. At least not in the way medical science catalogues it. Lucy has lost blood in another way. September the 4th, Van Helsing went back to his Holland office to consult books not found in scientific libraries. Some of the obscure books were titled Demonology, Witchcraft, Superstitious Myths, Lycanthropy, Vampire Legends. Van Helsing knew that only among these lay Lucy's salvation if he was in time. He returned to London on September the 7th and re-examined Lucy, who was now failing at an alarming rate. Lucy repeated her terror. Yes, Dr. Van Helsing, this nightmare of being visited by someone, a tall man in black, occurs almost nightly. What? Said Van Helsing. Call her fiancé Arthur. No time there is to lose. No time. Van Helsing knew that only blood could hope to save Lucy's life. Lucy sleeps, but her condition is critical. You must guard her each night, Dr. Stewart. You must make sure that no one and nothing disturbs her. I myself must procure a certain her
weary from the vigil, Dr. Seward fell sound asleep. His second night of standing watch over Lucy, while he slept on the sofa. Lucy arose like a sleepwalker and opened the French windows. She let in the black bat with the hypnotic eyes. In the morning, when Van Helsing arrived, he found Lucy sprawled on the carpet. Dr. Stewart stammered, "Oh, oh, but what happened while I slept?" Van Helsing recognized the symptoms at once. "The worst! 2 red marks on her throat. She has lost more blood, which must be replaced now." Feeling guilty for his lack of vigilance, Dr. Seward insisted on being a blood donor that time. As the blood flowed from Seward's arm to Lucy, his color returned to her death white face, and Van Helsing assured him she will revive. Sure, she will revive. Before leaving, Van Helsing distributed the herb he had brought. He placed the garlic flower on the windowsills, while Seward watched, puzzled. "My dear fella, a herb should be administered to the patient, not scattered around her room." Yeah, in ordinary medical cases, you are right, but Lucy's mother came to visit her sick daughter, relieving the 2 doctors of the burden. She thoughtfully reassured them, "Gentlemen, you have other duties. I will watch over my poor girl day and night." But as it chanced, when Mrs. Weston noticed the strong odor of the plants all around Lucy's room, and the garland around her daughter's neck, her sense of upper class dignity was offended. Garlic, how stifling. Perhaps the doctors wanted to disinfect the air, but too much of the heavy odor will be bad for Lucy. At the next visit, Van Helsing found Lucy once again looking worse. Mrs. Weston Rouse saw him standing at the open doors and the missing garlands. Yes, I threw those horrid plants out, and I left the French windows open all night to let in some fresh air. Now my turn, hurry! This time Van Helsing was the donor. Take more blood from me, Seward. More! Otherwise, Lucy will never come out of her coma. From then on, Van Helsing took no chances and guarded Lucy for 4 nights himself. The room was once more festooned with fresh roof Spain. On the 4th night, Van Helsing was rewarded by seeing the big black bats move angrily away from a sprig of the wolf Spain that hung at the French doors. Not tonight, my lustful friend. Wolf's bane fumes drive you back. Huh? Away, you foul thing, away. But not everywhere with things going so well. At the sanatorium, Dr. Seward was attacked by his mad patient. Renfield leapt out of the shadows of Seward's office, evening and night. Seward threw up his arm in reflexive defense. The blade gashed his wrist. And blood rhythmically gushed out of the big artery that had been severed. My wrist! My wrist! Guards! Guards! Attendants rushed in to find a shocking sight. Renfield was kneeling on the floor, lapping up the pool of blood that had come from the doctor's wrist. Regarding his own danger, Seward directed the capture of Renfield. Quick, the straitjacket! Watch out, he's a wild primitive, a wild animal. Yeah. His face and hands bathed in crimson. With maniacal strength, Renfield fought off the attendants and escaped. Again, I come, master, I come! Nearing Carfax Abbey, where Draymond had been called to cart away some of the 50 pine boxes filled with the black dirt, Renfield knelt as the boxes went past and wept. Yes, master, yes, I will go back to join you. I obey. That same night, Van Helsing received a telegram at Lucy's home. Another important consultation. I warn you, Mrs. Westenra, do not remove this wolf's bane or you will jeopardize your own life as well as that of your daughters. 3 hours after Van Helsing had left, a gaunt grey form leapt from the night and smashed its head through the French windows.
Its attack was brought up short when its nose plunged through one of the garlands. Lucy sat up in bed, terrified. But collapsed. Heaven help us. A wolf. Oh. Mother, it's all right. The wolf's bane stopped her. The wolf's bane.
But the wolf's visit had done more than simply break a pane of glass. In the morning, Seward and Van Helsing came upon what at first seemed a double death. Lucy lay sprawled near her mother on the floor. Van Helsing, taking Lucy's wrist, announced, "A faint pulse. A very faint one. Lucy is alive, but only an immediate transfusion can save her. Where can we find a donor this time? This quickly." As if in answer, the door opened and Quincy Morris stepped in. Morris, a chap of cheerful fatalism, spoke with his normal, unaffected abandon. "Why, hello there. I'm Quincy Morris, wartime friend of Arthur Homewood, and I say, what goes on here?" Helsing was equally as blunt. "Young man, roll up your sleeve if you wish to save your friend's fiancée." Quincy talked through the entire transfusion, and even when it was over, his chatter continued. 4 times in 10 days, you say? New blood poured into Lucy's veins? Well, what took the blood out? And Helsing clapped his hands joyfully. "Ah, a sharp young man who to the point comes. It is not anemia or any physical ailment, but it's a person. One who... But no. I cannot yet shock you with the real truth, not until we see if there is any change in Lucy's condition." On September the 20th, her teeth grew sharper and longer and overlapped her lower lip. Second, her lips took on a evil cast. Van Helsing pointed out the changes and noted that the 2 throat wounds were gone, healed. And for the first time, Van Helsing recognized his defeat. Sadly, he told them, "She is dying the wrong way. Quincy, bring Arthur here for the face." Quincy, popping with curiosity, tried to interrupt, was pushed from the room by Van Helsing. "I will explain later. Go." When the grief-stricken young lord arrived, he attempted to kiss his dying love, but Van Helsing flung him aside. "Do not kiss her!" "But Lucy, my promised wife." "Back! On your soul and on hers! The nearness of your throat could arouse an unholy lust and damn her forever." Dr. Seward was summoned, and after a silent, sorrowing wait, he announced, "Lucy is dead. It is the end." But Van Helsing, with a shocking lack of propriety, contradicted her. "But it is the beginning. Now we must save her." Arthur Homewood, feeling the first real pain, "She's dead. Save her from what?" "Save her from a second life as one of the undead." Ignoring their insistent clamor, Van Helsing refused to say more to the others. Later, he confided, "Mocking horror is to cut off her head and take out her heart." Seward protested. "But why such a ghastly autopsy? What will medical science gain?" "Let that be my secret for now. Can we get Arthur's permission?" The answer he had known beforehand. Homewood absolutely refuses to have his dead sweetheart's body mutilated.
Then poor Lucy will never rest in her grave quietly.
Record! Hampstead horror strikes again! London Times, another child missing. Daily Mail, more kiddies lured. Exeter Express, strange woman suspected. Westminster Gazette, special edition, another child lured by bloofer lady. Missing overnight. Boy dazed when found. Seemed uninjured. Mina and I just arrived in London after my release from the sanatorium in Budapest. I was at home with Mina when my paper arrived. Mina! This story in the Gazette about the bloofer lady. 2 tiny punctures on the throat of a child. Why do you look so agitated? She asked me. It reminds me of Transylvania and Castle Dracula, the nightmare I lived there. No, no, you are not to think of those things, my dear. You promised. I tried my best not to. But fate or coincidence intervened on September the 23rd. And passed by, in her arm through mine, sensed my shock. Mina pulled me all the way home. Dracula! That scar! That terrible... So young. Oh, what if I only knew? A letter the next morning. My dear Mrs. Mina Harker, I have been empowered to go through the papers left by Miss Lucy Westenra. Among your notes to her is mention of your husband's terrifying experiences in Castle Dracula. May I call on you and find out more? Most sincerely, Abraham Van Helsing. When Van Helsing called, I found I was not much help in answering his questions. No, I really can't remember what Count Dracula said, please. Mina tried her best to be the good wife. Professor, the doctors want Jonathan to forget, or the mental anguish will overcome him again. She guided Van Helsing to the door and gave him a copy of my notebook. Here, I have transcribed all of Jonathan's notes from his journal, the one he kept while at Castle Dracula. You will find your answers in there. I fear they are only lunatic ravings, you know. I hope not, for I seek the final clue to the mystery involving your friend Lucy's tragic end. September the 25th, before midnight. Jonathan, listen. The professor says, strange and terrible though Mr. Harker's story is, I swear it is true on my reputation as a scientist. Then it was not a mental breakdown I suffered. Oh, bless the man. I feel as if... September the 26th. Van Helsing dropped in again, this time with Dr. Seward. I related my Piccadilly experience. But how could it be Count Dracula, I asked. So much younger looking. That is the keynote, Herr Harker. That is the keynote. And the answer not only to poor Lucy's fate, but... Van Helsing, seeing my afternoon paper, snatched it up and read. Continued. The bloofer lady is still uncaught. Also this mystery. You mean Count Dracula mistaken for a woman or in disguise as the culprit? No. I mean that the bloofer lady who made the marks on their throats was Lucy Westenra. Mina and I were utterly shocked, and Dr. Seward angry. He banged his fist on the table. Are you mad, Van Helsing? Miss Lucy is dead and buried. How can she be stalking children in the night? You'll see, Herr Doctor, tonight you and I, Seward, will spend the night at the churchyard where Lucy's body lies. Arthur Homewood gave me the key. That night, Van Helsing unlocked the door of the mausoleum. Dr. Seward held the lantern until they had found the most recent addition to the shelves. It was marked with a brass work on the lid, and deftly they worked it open. Seward, his face showing definite signs of discomfort, spoke mainly to hear the sound of his own voice. Lucy's corpse will be in here, of course. But Van Helsing didn't let him delude himself for long. I'm not sure, Dr. Seward. Let us look. Van Helsing tipped up the lid, and Dr. Seward shone his lantern down in it. Aha! Behold, empty. Great. While Seward recovered, the professor closed the lid in a bored, "I told you so" manner. "But," protested Seward, "sell corpses to the medical schools, as you and I both very well know. They took Lucy's remains. That must be the answer." "But it's not, Herr Doctor. We will obtain the real evidence when she returns." And the two men shivered in the night chill, but snapped direct when Van Helsing pointed to it. There. Good heavens. And again, by some means we didn't understand, the figure sensed the two trespass, the two men. "See, try to quickly examine the throat of the child." Racing to the youngster, but in time. Yes, we were in time to interrupt Lucy's repast. Night after night, she has been sleeping forth, preying on the blood of children. On September the 27th, Seward and Van Helsing pretended to be part of a funeral party at the church. Standing at the fringe of the crowd, Van Helsing pulled Seward away. "This way, Seward. Nobody will notice we did not depart with the mourners. We'll be left locked in the graveyard." They re-entered Lucy's tomb and raised the lid of her coffin. "I believe it now, Van Helsing." They had walked away from the churchyard before they could speak again. "So that was why you once asked to mutilate Lucy's body." "Yes. And if Arthur had agreed before the funeral, she would not now be a walking undead. He must agree now, or she will go on ravaging children." On September the 28th, the grim and solemn meeting was called between Professor Van Helsing, Dr. Seward, Arthur Homewood, and Quincy Morris. "God in heaven," said Arthur. "Lucy, my beloved, now a creature I thought existed only in superstitious tales. Tell me, Van Helsing, what can be done to stop her?" "That is the hardest part of all, Arthur. We must place a silver crucifix on her brow. Then we must drive a wooden stake through her heart and fill her mouth with garlic." Van Helsing patted Arthur's slumped shoulders in sympathy. "But why must we kill Lucy twice?" "Because we who have studied the occult know that the undead are cursed with immortality unless the means I just described are used to bring them true death. Lucy became undead from not only her loss of blood, but from the fact that some of the blood of the vampire flowed into her veins. Now her victims could also become undead. Ever wider spirals the evil circle. So mark you well, Arthur. Lucy will carry on her hideous deeds for centuries if we don't release her. Then be done with it as soon as possible. You've chosen wisely, Arthur. For with her second death, Lucy will know true repose and stay peacefully in her grave forever. At midnight, 4 men climbed the wall of the churchyard. Entering the tomb, they clustered around Lucy's coffin as Van Helsing pried open the lid with a crowbar. It was empty, of course. Lucy was out foraging for children. She was a delicate woman, and children were all that she dared attack. The professor removed his equipment. It included a silver crucifix, a sharp wooden stake, a heavy hammer. You have time to prepare for her return. She will never leave this coffin again, I promise you. Time passed with excruciating slowness for the anxious executioners. Finally, Lucy returned. Here she comes. And Lucy began her nightly ritual. Sitting on a flat tombstone, she sank her teeth into the child's throat. Arthur, unable to believe and unable to bear the spectacle, rushed forward. "Stop, Lucy, stop!" Lips exposed, sharp fangs and fresh warm blood. "My dear Lucy!" Oh, changed, becoming the Lucy of innocence. "Why, Arthur, old husband." Lucy's formerly sweet voice once more flowed with honey. "You have come." She raised one hand to Arthur invitingly, while he stood with arms upraised before his face. "Come, Arthur, leave the other." Van Helsing rushed up to Arthur, shouting his warning. "She must..." Bright surfaces, Lucy recoiled in fear. Dropping the child, she fled to her tomb. The men stared after her. Before their eyes, a startling phenomenon took place. Arthur broke the sudden silence. "Incredible! She wafted herself through that solid door. The undead have many powers, Arthur. They can also turn into wolves and into bats at will." They paused for a moment in solemn reflection as seen fitting to the surroundings. "Quincy, you take care of that poor child." Following the preliminaries, Van Helsing picked up the stake and the hammer with distaste, but suddenly Arthur Holmwood seized them away. "No, let me do it. Let me release my beloved Lucy from her horribles." So, now hold the stake in your left hand, place the point over her heart, and... Tortured young man slumped back and dropped the hammer from his hand. "What have I done? What have I done?" "Come and see, Arthur. Come and see." Hesitantly, he peered down at Lucy. His now closed in view, for she was not... Thank God. Thank God. May her soul forever rest. Van Helsing finished the ritual. "Do not look, Arthur. Her head must be free of her body, and her mouth must be stuffed with wolf's bane. The one who victim can never repossess her body. Who is he? Who is the one who did this? Tell me, Van Helsing, I insist on knowing." "Yes, and that is our next big task, to find the one who brought Lucy to this tragic fate." They closed the coffin and they gathered their tools. "From Jonathan Harker's journal of his experiences in Transylvania, I know the name. It is Dracula." The following evening, Van Helsing came by to tell Mina about the events involving her late friend. "Before Lucy's death, Mina, you glimpsed the big bat, the tall man in the garden, the wolf, all the manifestations of Dracula. And he is in London," I interrupted, "and it could happen to you, Mina." At that moment, my illness forgotten, I felt the challenge and I answered it. "From now on, Van Helsing, you can count me in on your vampire hunt. After all, I feel responsible, for it was I who sold Dracula the Carfax estate. Come, I'll show it to you." The mansion looked disturbingly reminiscent of Castle Dracula. "That's Carfax Abbey, and if Dracula really lives here, we can dispose of him as easily as we did Lucy." "Not so easily, Harker, no. Remember, he shifted 50 boxes of his native soil, 50 different coffins in which to hide away during the daylight hours." We moved up to the padlocked iron gate, and Helsing showed particular interest in the half-ruined chapel. "I checked, and the boxes were first delivered to that chapel, but last September 17th, some of them were taken away. He scattered them very cleverly. 50 daytime havens, hidden in many unknown places. Yes, Arthur. It's going to take skilled detective work on our part to hunt him down." We all swore a solemn oath. "Miss Mina, Jonathan Harker, Arthur Quincy Morris, and Dr. Seward, do we all agree to devote our utmost endeavors to tracking down and destroying Dracula?" "We do," was the unanimous answer. "Now, my friends, let me elaborate for you some of the terrible supernatural powers a vampire has. Dracula, from sunset to sunrise, has the strength of 20 men. To hide himself, he can command fog, storm, and thunder. He can change into a wolf, a bat, an owl, even a moth. Thousands of vicious rats answer his silent summons. He can vanish entirely, grow huge or very tiny. He throws no shadow and shows no mirror image. He can transform himself. Of course, he also sees in the dark. And if he feasts on the quantity of human blood, he grows an undead vampire. I've traced him 600 years back to one who, it is said, made a pact with the evil one in return for aid against the Turkish invaders of his land. He was killed in battle, but through the dark powers, he arose, thirsting thereafter for blood. While we listened to Van Helsing, Quincy Morris slipped away. Racing outside, we found him just lowering a pistol. He told us offhandedly, a big black bat was on the windowsill eavesdropping. Count Dracula himself. It's well you chased him away, Quincy, so he does not hear of my plans. Back inside, the professor displayed a drawing he had made. It was a map of the London area. 4 black X's were marked in. By inquiring amongst the delivery people, I found out his 50 boxes of earth are distributed in these 4 places. We must visit them one by one and destroy them. The Carfax boxes first. Stewart then spoke up. My sanatorium is near Carfax. Why not make it our headquarters? We spent the day gathering various equipment and weapons together. Pistols and silver crucifixes. At dawn tomorrow, we will visit Dracula's first lair, the Carfax Abbey. The next day was October the 3rd. As at 4 o'clock in the morning, a screaming wail was abruptly heard from Renfield's room. We all dashed in to find him lying on the floor in a spreading pond of blood. For once, it was his own. Renfield, cried Dracula. But why should he attack this poor demented soul unless... Let's get his story. Hurry. The dying man gasped out his tale from a hospital bed. Oh, yeah. And then?
Floated a tall figure in black with burning red eyes. He threatened me. He said...
You saw what I did last night, Renfield. But you must never tell Dr. Seward. Understand?
I rushed the monster in a rage, but with terrible strength he lifted me high and threw me to the floor. You see, he did not want you to know that he had begun drinking Tim.
Nobody had noticed that I was not with them, and when they rushed to our room, they found me in a stupor, while Dracula was at Mina's throat. Van Helsing had led them into our room behind the protection of a crucifix. Fools, your league against me will never win. But Van Helsing drove him back. The crucifix can drive me away now. And with that, he dematerialized into a smoke that curled under the door and disappeared as his voice faded with it. Mina Parker is the one of us now, and she will aid. When poor Mina and I awoke from our mesmeric daze, we were told the terrible truth. My dear wife went to pieces, crying and pleading, "Oh, please kill me now, Jonathan, so I cannot turn against you. Please, my darling, you love me. Your death is the last thing we want now." Van Helsing reminded her. "For you would arise, walk from your grave, and become what Lucy was. Only by living can you help us defeat Dracula." And much to my horror, Mina's features started the same transformation that I had seen in Lucy. She could even feel the change herself.
I can hear mental commands emanating from him now. Mental commands telling me to find out your plans for him.
Yeah, but who can play at that game? Resources to the battle, all of them. On October the 3rd at dawn, I was left to guard Mina, while Van Helsing, Seward, Holman, and Morris broke into Carfax Abbey. From the back gate, they reached and entered the old chapel, where 29 boxes of earth were stored. Instructed by Van Helsing, they went to work efficiently, destroying Dracula's coffins. Working as a team, they pried open the lids of the coffins. Van Helsing then placed a garland of wolfsbane and a silver crucifix in each one. Then the last man hammered the lids shut. With the wolfsbane and the crucifix in each box, the vampire was barred in front of us. But wait! There are 8. No more than 9 boxes, but Dracula has one left. One, but where? Stunned by this knowledge, we fell silent, until without warning the door flew open. He reprimanded us. With the power to read Mina's mind. Fool, said the professor, the first of us to find his voice. In the daytime, you have no powers. By coming, you have risked yourself. Attack him. I swung at him with a great cookery knife. Fiend for tainting my wife. He leapt out of a nearby window, leaving us with nothing but his fading words. Farewell. Arthur was quick to realize that it was a drop of 30 feet to the courtyard below and ran to the window to see if he was injured. But Van Helsing wasn't as optimistic as Arthur was. Like we are. He is escaping to his last coffin and we must find it. We were all dispirited, with the exception of the professor whom we found in Mina's room. Mina will pick up the trail for us. Dracula's mental rapport with her is a two-way process, you know. He can ferret information from her mind, but she also can read his. Hypnosis will do it. A mesmeric expert, Van Helsing soon had her in a trance with his glittering watch fob. Sleep. Sleep. Now, reach out with your mind. What fear around me? I feel still, enclosed in a box by waves slapping, ropes and pulleys creaking. Van Helsing was elated as he snapped his fingers and woke her up. He has done it! Dracula in his last coffin is in a ship, and a sailing ship, England. Great relief swept over me. We'd won. Driven him away. He would no longer plague Mina and prey on London's millions. My elation was deflated by the Dutchman. No, we have lost temporarily, Jonathan. Unless we follow and destroy, Mina will meet the same fate as did Lucy. Only the Count's second death will free her from the curse. In distress, I reminded them of our predicament. But we don't know where Dracula is going, or what ship he took. If you are lucky, mein Herr, and too many ships did not sail in the past hours, we can find out. The only sailing ship that had embarked since the previous noon was the Tsarina Katerina, bound for Varna, Bulgaria. He was going back to Castle Dracula. The vessel was scheduled to reach Varna on October the 17th. If we cross the channel by boat and then train at Paris, we can beat him there and be waiting at the tide, and was doomed to emerge from her grave to stalk the night like Lucy, that we must first do something important for her. You will have to give me the second death, too. So please, I want a holy service now. Do as she wishes, Jonathan, my friend. Even I am not sure of the outcome, for Dracula will have an advantage in his homeland. Our friends were called in for the somber funeral service for the living person. Van Helsing concluded the service with a wish. And may you rest in peace. You will see that I do, Professor, if it comes to that. We left Paris bound for the Black Sea. Under hypnosis, Mina kept us informed of the ship's progress. Rough waters, warning bell, clanging from shore. Van Helsing recognized it as the Dardanelles. The Tsarina Katerina would therefore make... On the 17th, we waited all day at the docks, but it was overdue what had happened to it. Under hypnosis, Mina told us. Fog. Surrounding the ship constantly. An unnatural fog. Captain and helmsman baffled. going past Varna.
Halt! Leaving his casket at night, Dracula came on deck and has created the fog. He also has rapport with Mina.
Then he consulted a map of the Black Sea region and announced that the next big port was Galatz in Romania. We rushed there by train. October the 29th. Due to passport delays and bad train schedules, we barely reached Galatz in time. We found the sailing ship anchored out in the harbor as the sun set. Customs wouldn't let her unload until the morning. But with his night powers, can't he change form again and escape to the shore?
Thing a vampire's powers. One of them is that he cannot cross running water. So he is trapped aboard the ship until dawn.
Through the entire next day, we watched the cargo being taken off. No coffin was removed. Captain, you left England with a... Gone, sir.
Gone? Somebody came aboard during the night and took it away. The deck watch saw the derry rowing away when it's too late to stop it.
A long time to make contact with Dracula through Mina, but he had cut off his communication with her for the time and left us with no clues, and Helsing was worried.
Once Dracula reaches his castle, he'll be safe. We must intercept him on the way. But by what road is he going?
It was Mina, my wonderful wife, who divined Dracula's plans by another mental power, sheer reasoning. On a map, she marked in her intuitive answer. Look, Professor, the river Sereth winds all the way from the Black Sea through the Carpathian Mountains and near the Borgo Pass, which is only a short distance from his destination. And Helsing saw the rest.
Obviously, Dracula's coffin is being transported in a riverboat. Good thinking, my girl.
Like a general, he worked out the strategy to capture our wily antagonist before he reached his lair. He paired us up and gave us our assignments.
You and Arthur will chase him upriver by motor launch. Quincy and Dr. Seward will go by horse on an overland route. Mina and I will go to the Borgo Pass by coach.
The morning of October the 31st, we had made all arrangements, and Van Helsing gave us our final encouragement.
Good luck, all. May we meet in safety and victory. Godspeed.
On November the 1st and November the 5th, our team continued our part of the chase. Our pair of horsemen rode steadily through high mountain passes, taking every possible shortcut. But in the coach, Mina suddenly stiffened. Professor, Dracula has just recontacted my mind. I can feel it.
Then he must be ascertaining our pursuit plans so he can retaliate.
Tweet, the three female vampires who had once almost victimized me played their siren role. They beckoned. Come, Mina. You have Dracula's mark on your throat. You are one of us. Come, come. With the crucifix in the ground, which saved Mina from their evil lure.
From the Holy Ring. Begone, wretched ones, your master can never claim this victim.
With Mina asleep under his hypnotic powers, he left the coach to Castle Dracula. From the direction in my journal, he found the 3 graves of the undead women and drove stakes to their hearts and severed their heads. But Van Helsing had still another purpose in exploring the castle, and that was to find the tomb of Dracula in the chapel where I had fixed 3 crucifixes inside all 4 coffins there, and sprigs of wolf's bane all around the edges of the lids. Then he declared,
the king of vampires will never rest here again. No matter what the outcome, when we waylay him for...
From their high perch at the Borgo Pass, Dracula's motor launch landing at the foot of the castle road. Slovak peasants loaded the casket on a wagon and whipped the oxen relentlessly, for they wanted to reach the castle before sunset. With the coming of night, he would regain his awesome powers and would be able to defend our invasion of his lair. The launch transporting Arthur and myself arrived shortly thereafter, only to be met by the band of armed Slovaks. Arthur, a commando at heart, led our attack. Open fire with the rifles, Jonathan. The beggars have only got swords and knives. Fleeing, the peasants left their horses behind. We quickly mounted to, and again Arthur led off out to the wagon. After Dracula's casket. Jonathan, we must overtake them while it is yet daylight. 1 hour before sunset. All was coming to a tense, dramatic climax. The Slovaks with the wagons strained to reach the castle. Our horsemen strove to overtake them. At stake were 6 lives, for with the darkness, the casket would open, and out would spring Dracula, ready to wreak his hideous vengeance. A dozen Slovaks guarded the wagon in a grim circle, swords drawn and ready. A pitched battle was 4 men against a dozen, rifles against swords. Quincy Morris took a deep gash from his thigh to his knee, and was thrown off his horse. And Helsing, with the cunning of a buccaneer, attacked from an unexpected quarter. The remaining Slovaks and Zgani fled. We had won, but was it in time? We ran toward the wagon on which the casket lay. In another moment, I knew to the sunset. We would not have time to open the coffin. A great fury arose within me. This monster, who had nearly shattered my mind, who had placed his foul mark on my sweet wife. Nothing could have stopped me. I sprang on the wagon, and from somewhere, great strength flowed into me. I heaved the coffin off the wagon as if it were toy. Fiend from hell! I screamed. Striking the ground, the casket split open like rotten fruit, revealing Dracula's sleeping form. Now is the time! Hurry! Van Helsing and Arthur moved forward, but halted at a cry from behind them. Quincy dragged himself up to the wagon, holding the fatal wound with one hand and a long knife with the other. Stop! It is my privilege before I die. I rushed in from the other side with a castaway Slovak sword. And let me finish the job I should have done months ago when I entered the castle of this beast. I teamed up with Quincy, desperately opening his mental forces. With a hypnotic rhythm, we heard him say, "You are powerless, powerless. You cannot move. And in another moment, the sun will sink below the peaks and I will vanish." Unable to move, had Dracula won? Dracula, as if receiving strength from it, he twisted, trying to worm his whole body into the darkness. His movement broke our spell. I was the first to move, and I kicked him, pinning him back into what sun was left. Quincy then pinned him and slammed his long knife through Dracula's heart.